Serious, parents of sociopaths, psychopaths or people who have done terrible things, how do you feel about your offspring? Not a parent, but I'll tell you about my sister. It all started when she turned 13. My mother decided that was old enough to watch me without her being there. I am about 2 years younger than her, and have always been underweight small. She took full advantage of this as she commanded me around like a slave and beat me mercilessly every day until I turned 15. There were days where she would be nice, but most I will never forget. She'd unhook the phone from the wall so I couldn't call my mom for help. She'd lock me in my room and then remove the doorknob so I couldn't leave. She tossed the only toy I had left from when my mom and dad were married to the dogs and let them chew on it just to get to me, to watch me cry. I remember at one point I had had enough. Told her I'd rather die than stay with her. She decided to hold a knife to my back. Told me to say the word and she'd do it. Once I had turned 15, I became her alibi instead. Just another tool to her. When she'd sneak out, I'd feign ignorance when my parents asked about her whereabouts. She'd get me to help her steal by carrying stolen merchandise in my purse. Anything and everything she wanted or I'd get hit hard. She eventually left home and got knocked up at 18 with some kid my age, 16. While pregnant she seemed to get better. Her anger and tantrums of rage stopped. She cared for me almost like a second mother even apologized for all the crap back when I was little. I had hope for her. It didn't last. After the baby was born, she slowly reverted back into that person. The criminal, the druggie, the bully. My mom and stepdad's kindness had run out by the time she turned 20 and still mooched off them. No job. Spent all her tax returns and boyfriend's money on crap they didn't need. We had to formally evict them. My sister said before leaving, "We have plenty of places to go. We just stayed here to frick with you." Before she left, she took all my mother's pictures of her and shredded them. From baby to the last day she stayed here. I'm glad I don't have to see her or her boyfriend's faces anymore, but I feel bad for her little boy, that he has to grow up with parents like that. Everyone is just a potential tool to my sister, and when you outlive your usefulness to her, you'll know. As a parent of someone who was diagnosed with a mental illness fairly young, I can give you my thoughts. There is a grieving process that happens. You love the child you brought into the world. At some point, that child changed. In our case it was during elementary school. The grown woman who I gave birth to 24 years ago is not the same person I once knew and loved. So I miss the sweet child I knew and I do my best to protect myself and those I love from the woman she became. Ultimately as a parent, I kept her alive until she was 18. Technically that is where my job stopped. Don't get me wrong, I did a ton over the years. She spent the vast majority of her life 9-17 and various long-term residential treatment centers that were provided to us via special education. By the time she turned 18, she had been in treatment for over half her life. No, not just medication or only medication. They do a lot for these kids to try and keep them out of residential treatment centers. Once she turned 18, it became time for me to take care of myself and part of that requires me to put my safety first. For the record, she is and was my only child. My ex-husband and his current wife have 5 children. To my knowledge one of them is also very unstable for lack of better words. TLDR, you separate the person from the illness. You grieve the child you once knew and love. You figure out how to protect yourself from them when they turn 18. I worked as a nanny for one family for 3 years. The girl was 9 when I started and the boy was 5. The boy is autistic and I'm fairly certain the girl is a sociopath. The girl would constantly torture her brother with things she knew would drive him mad. This isn't normal sibling fuckery either. She took it to a whole new level to the point he would physically rip his hair out and scratch his face and body trying to get her to stop. But to make things worse, she can switch in a second to being all sweet and loving. So her brother still adores her. She treated everyone around her as objects. And if they didn't do what she wanted, she would either completely disengage or hurt them. The first time she told a complete lie about to her parents because I didn't do what she wanted. They let me know that the first time she threw someone under the bus was when she was 4. No amount of lessons about treating others kindly get through to her, and the look she gets on her face when hurting others is terrifying. She got so bad by the time she turned 12 that I had to quit. Puberty just magnified everything. Her parents are pushovers and let her get away with anything. She doesn't want to go to therapy, so she doesn't have to. I'm afraid of what she'll become when she gets older. I recently went to my friend's graduation party where I met her 11-year-old cousin. For the entirety of the party she chased my friend's dog around, saying how she was going to throw it into the pool. I didn't think it was a big deal, but then her dog hid under my chair. Now keep in mind this dog has chased off bears and mountain lions and generally doesn't take crap from anything. But she was hiding. Finally the cousin sees her and comes over to ask if I'll hand her over. I ask why and she answers that the dog deserves to die. She then spent the next 10 minutes describing how she plans to do it. First breaking the legs, then slowly suffocating her with carbon dioxide from dry ice after locking her in a cage. She described this in a totally straightforward voice. No emotion, not even excitement on her face. I immediately tell my friend about it. After making dang well sure that the dog wouldn't be touched, my friend blew me off the first few times. Her cousin started talking about her plans to kill herself, which centered primarily around stabbing pens into her eyes and bleeding out slowly. I tried to tell my friend again, but she just said that her cousin had always been like that and that the family couldn't afford the drugs that would get their daughter under control. There is no doubt in my mind that this girl is going to kill someday. It wouldn't surprise me in the least if she ends up being a serial killer, and frankly I'm not sure there's anything to do about it short of locking her in a mental hospital and never letting her out. Let's hope her first victim kill her first. I keep seeing a lot of people cite bipolar disorder as a reason for psychopathic or sociopathic behavior. Please keep in mind that bipolar disorder may be a comorbidity, but it is not a sole reason for these disorders. Bipolar is apparently very much misunderstood by the general population. My current roommate is a complete sociopath. I hope people don't think I'm using that term lightly. I've never seen someone use and discard people so flippantly. I truly hurt for some of the people that he ensnares because I am one of them. He's very charming at first. However, once you see through his games and he knows it, he becomes a vindictive and spiteful person. Luckily he is moving out on the 1st. I have a friend whose son is definitely a sociopath. From a very young age he gave signs of it. His father, who left them soon after he was born, was a criminal who slapped and choked my friend. So I think there is something to the nature side of things being as important as the nurture part. Anyway, when he was very little he would lie all the time about anything and everything. He started hurting animals when he was probably about 8. He developed serious drug problems in his early teens. I convinced his mother to put him into rehab to help with his addiction. While in there, the psychiatrist diagnosed him with borderline personality disorder. He blamed me for putting him there and told me in the most blood-curdling way that he hated me and would get back at me. I moved away from them several years ago. His mother told me the latest news was that he was convicted of physically, not physical shaming, abusing his girlfriend's little kids. He is in the state pen now. I believe some people are born no good. I was friends with a girl named Betty when I was a kid. Her parents owned a weekend home next door to my dad's house, and we would hang out together on occasion whenever our visits coincided. She was adopted, a little socially awkward and immature for her age, but otherwise seemed normal enough. When we were both around 16 she just stopped showing up. No one mentioned why. Whenever I asked about Betty, her parents would get a grave look on their faces and just say she can't come this weekend. Well, after I had asked a few times and unwittingly made everyone uncomfortable, my dad pulled me aside and told me to stop asking about Betty. Apparently at 16, she decided she wanted to find her birth mother, and her parents helped her to do so. Her birth mother was an alcoholic who had a 17-year-old son living with her, Betty's half-brother. Betty befriended the 17-year-old son and they started an odd, semi-romantic relationship. The son convinced her that they needed to be together, and that her adoptive parents were standing in the way. They were rich, and if Betty killed them, she could inherit everything and provide for him and her real mother, and they could all be together. Betty agreed to do this. Together they began crafting a shoddy murder plot. They were going to wait until the parents were sleeping, stage a break-in, and stab them to death in their beds. Some of the planning was done by Betty while at school and was overheard and reported to the proper people. Betty was confronted with the plot, got upset, and ran away. And since she had been planning on killing her parents, the parents decided not to try real hard to find her and to change the locks. I think as time has passed she has made some efforts to get back in contact with them, but I don't know how successful she was. I really kind of got the sense they had washed their hands of her. My son is locked up in another state because he ran away and got in trouble before he had to face trial in our home state for stealing cars. It is killing me. He is actually a very sweet kid who just can't stay out of trouble. He has a drug and alcohol problem, but it is even more than that. He has uncontrollable impulsivity. If he wants something he has to have it even if he has to steal to get it. I am sad about things he has done, but I still love him and there is a big hole in my heart from missing him. I believe my step cousin is a sociopath. He lived by my grandparents because they are old and thought it would be nice to have younger family around. After he graduated high school he began stealing from them. It started off small, guns, jewelry, the likes, and eventually turned into more expensive things and money. Grandpa wanted to throw him out. Grandpa knew he wasn't going to change. Grandma wouldn't have it though. She loved him. I should preface this by saying both of my grandparents are Baptists. She firmly believed Jesus would help him. Grandpa knew otherwise. The stealing continued. He started taking her neck pills. He started doing hardcore drugs. Grandpa threatened to kick him out again. My cousin begged and promised he'd stop doing drugs. He'd get clean. He'd get a job and sober up. Grandpa didn't believe it, but because he loved Grandma and she believed him, he allowed it. Grandpa passed away last year with pancreas cancer. My cousin stayed with my grandmother to help her through her depression. At this point we all believed he was actually clean because he had a job, just bought himself a new motorcycle, was actually on track to having a new life. We were all completely wrong. Not even a month after Grandpa passed, my cousin began using drugs again. Come to think of it, he probably never even stopped. He stole money from her. I'm not talking petty money either. He stole $13,000 from my grandmother's bank account because he knew her debit card info and managed to get it from her purse. Grandma found out. She breaks down. Other family calls the cops. She gets a restraining order. He takes off. No one knows where he is. I hope one day justice is served. For my grandmother's sake. I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for or if you're going to get a chance to read this, but I'm a psychopath. As a kid I used to joke that I was a robot because I didn't seem to feel the way other people felt. My parents had been concerned from a young age about the vacancy of my feelings, but I guess they had just hoped it would get better as I had more life experience. It did not. I learned to imitate emotions and as I grew older developed some very shallow understanding of empathy that I used to blend in. However, there is a switch where I just power down in a sense and completely detach. I didn't go off the rails. I did well in school, got a good job, live well. I don't have any real relationships. I've been told I'm charming, which is how I pull people in. I like to study them, learn about them, and I keep note if it's of use to me. I create dependence and cut them off to see how long they'll survive and if there is anything worth going back for. I go through the people like they are playthings, or am falsely nice to them until I get whatever it is I wanted from them. The people that I keep in my life are there for use or amusement. I have always had impulse control issues and have a lack of risk aversion that had resulted in a gambling problem. I have lied and manipulated family and friends into give me money to when I've needed to pay off debts. They all know they should give up on me but they don't. But I'll look at them and I feel nothing where there should be something. I used to babysit, grew up and killed 3 people, one of whom was pregnant. There wasn't really an explanation other than the fact that he was into a variety of drugs and had a short temper. Those people were his friends. The pregnant woman's little girl was there when it all went down, but fortunately was asleep and didn't actually witness anything. She was in another part of the house. After it happened, he took the little girl to the police station to turn himself in. So underneath it all he still had a conscience. I know he was raised by good parents. He just lost control for a split second and will now spend the rest of his life in prison. Frick, holy frick. I was best friends with someone for years who behaved like a psychopath. This was in high school. I'm now in college. He was clearly in pain but would hurt those who tried to help him. Everyone who put up with his cruelty to try to benefit him only ended up so frustrated and devastated that they had to give in and cut him off. I had to cut him off when he told me over the phone that he was about to kill himself and hung up. I called back and when he finally picked up he was laughing. I won't pretend to understand how he was feeling, but he behaved as if all he wanted was to harm the people around him, especially his family, and destroy relationships. He manipulated, stole, and caused so much chaos and stress for so many people. He went into treatment for several years since I've really last talked to him. For all I know he's totally cured, but this isn't someone I can let back into my life. Be careful with assuming that all sociopaths are totally horrible people that will do awful things. Remember, always in dealing with such things there are always wide ranges of degrees for the conditions. For example, a friend of mine who lives in Canada has some crippling bipolar psychopathy issues, but she has access to steady therapy, nurse checkups steadily, and prescribed drugs that make it so she can happily live on her own, work a job just fine, and function. Every here or there she'll have an episode, but thanks to the good coverage of mental issues she has with her nurses and docs, she can handle it extremely well. The biggest issue with crazy people in the US is that so many go with poor or spotty treatment, if even any at all. A cousin of my husband has a few serious disorders, but has pretty much no therapy or support at all. He lives with his parents still, threatens them with knives, and is something of a terrifying person to be around. That isn't to say that people who are sociopaths, psychopaths, etc. can all be great and functioning members of society. Just remember that because some movie or show represents them in a certain way that it's likely quite far from the norm or the truth by any stretch. If a parent works with their child to get help and tries hard, then they can have a totally normal, if difficult at times, life. If they go by the normal US method of thinking all psychiatrists, therapists are quacks, or that things like anxiety don't really exist and you should just man up, etc., then they probably have a crap life and are miserable. It's lame. Mental health has a long way to go in the US. I can't help but imagine how many people in this thread are in the US and how many lives could have been made better by someone, parent or child, getting help. But sadly, there are situations that are beyond help. Some families cling to helpless situations to their own detriment. I do not believe that help should not be sought, but the spectrum has two sides, and one of those sides is terrifying and cannot be changed. A psychiatrist is needed to determine if the patient is beyond help. Also, this kid beats up the biological sibling that is a toddler. I know what you're going to say, but it's still not right. I also stopped her from trying to throw the toddler in the pool. I tried, but I just cannot endure this thread. Excellent question. Very thoughtful discussion. But it's too dark, too real, too hopeless and grim. There is no redemption here. No salvation. No way home. I will walk away from this without understanding. I will hug my 5-year-old boy and think of all the good in the world. I don't know if my mother is a sociopath or a narcissist. These are things that were done to me as a child. I was called you little bee more than I was called by my own name. She would mock me and make fun of me. She would get my brothers to join in on mocking me until I cried. She pulled my hair all the time. She made my dad hold me down while she slapped me repeatedly in the face. She told me I was filled with Satan. She constantly told me that her boys were good and she loved them. I was physically shamed by a pediatrician while she was in the room. I was violated when I was 16. She called me a W. A few years later I admitted what had happened and I was crying. I laid my head in her lap for comfort and she jerked her knee and said, "Stop crying, you're getting makeup on my nightgown." Now that I am a grown woman, she has told me that the reason things go badly for me is that I am not right with God. She has told me that God told her not to give me money or help me in any way. I am a single mom and had 3 major surgeries in 2010 and she didn't call or make me a meal. I know this seems like it isn't real, but it is. This happened and as a result I suffer with major depressive disorder and anxiety. I have never had a successful relationship with a partner. I spent years telling myself I was crazy and that no one could do this to their own child. I'm older now and I know that she did do this to me. The worst part is that she also destroyed any relationship I could have had with my father by manipulating him. I would like to hear about others with sociopath or narcissist mothers. I used to feel all alone, but I see there are others. Thank you so much for sharing. I am so sorry for the things this supposed human being put you through. You deserve so much better, and I truly hope you are healing and have had good things in your life. Please PM me if you ever need to talk. There are thousands of people right here on Reddit who are appalled at the way you were treated and who care about you. All the best for the future. Well, my parents are still 100% immersed in denial, and I think you'll find that most parents would be the same way. Nobody wants to accept that something is legitimately wrong with their child, whether or not it results in them doing bad things. Emotional intelligence can always waver in the face of adversity when it comes to your own flesh and blood, hence the excuses people so often make for their family. Not a parent, but I have seen it. My fiance's sister is adopted and has severe developmental delays, severe bipolar disorder, and has reactive attachment disorder that can go two ways: withdrawing from society and constant need for attention. She had the constant need for attention. Full stop. Watching her manipulate her family makes me truly think she has no empathy or understanding of human behavior. One day when we were dating, I was staying at their house. She was watching TV with her dad, but it wasn't what she wanted to watch. My fiance and I were up in his room. We hear them fighting over what to watch. She loses that argument, and half an hour later she comes upstairs and shows us how she slit her wrists. Casually. Just kinda like, look what I did. She uses their love for her against them. When she doesn't get her way, she routinely tries to kill herself. At her grandmother's funeral, she wasn't allowed to wear sweatpants and she cut herself to get back at her parents and eventually get her way. Because they needed help, my fiance lost his childhood in order to help take care of her. He essentially became a third parent. I feel terrible for them and personally worry about our future. I constantly worry about our wedding and what will happen when she isn't the center of attention. I worry about what will happen when we have children. I worry about when it is our turn to take care of her when her parents pass and we become her caregivers. She is incapable of taking care of herself. The whole family loves her more than anything and don't see how she manipulates them. It breaks my heart and makes me worry constantly. What I feel is that he's an butthole, but I tell him it's a condition because I don't want to hurt his feelings. Guys, I was being sarcastic. Most parents that say their son/daughter is a sociopath actually just have butthole pampered children. My son robbed a convenience store when he was 20 years old. I love him, but he has made many ill decisions in his life. We do not talk much at all. I've been diagnosed by multiple counselors as severely sociopathic. I don't have the time to type anything out, but feel free to message me or just reply to this and I'll answer anything you ask. Sociopath stepping in to say hello. I despise psychopaths and would be extremely disappointed if my child was one. Psychopaths just lack so much common sense. I will likely never end up in jail because I have enough sense to know that stabbing somebody in the face is going to get me arrested, even if I could theoretically do it. Jail ain't a place I want to go, and I'll do just about anything to avoid going. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.